Who here has a bottle of Method sitting in their home right now? Thank you. And I see I got a lot of upside. So my name is Eric. I co-founded Method, the soap company based here in San Francisco, and recently started a second company called Ollie. I've been asked to talk about the future of branding, which is really odd because soap was an incredibly innovative industry about 150 years ago. So I'm just a little late to the party, but soap was also arguably the first thing brands were ever built around. And so I want to share a little bit of the founding story because everybody loves a good story, and just how I thought about setting the table for the company we created and how we think about building brands. And then I'm going to go a little into what I think is the one part of the future of branding that should be consistent with all companies. So unlike other entrepreneurs, I didn't start with an amazing idea, a business model. I really had this thought that I would start with a category. And I started looking around for what I thought were really dull spaces. And I just started looking at the cleaning category with this idea of finding the white space. So my whole thesis of starting a business was find a category, figure out the cultural shift it's missing, and in between the space would be the business opportunity. So I started looking here and figuring out there was this whole cultural shift towards lifestyling of the home. So really obvious, make it look beautiful, smell beautiful. And then Adam, my co-founder, as we started digging into it, we realized wow, cleaning is a really dirty industry. You essentially pollute when you clean, you use poison to make your home healthier. And so the thought of creating a product that, if you look at the number of childhood poisonings every year, has a really bad impact on, that didn't sit right to us. So we decided to start a natural product, which back in 2000 sounded like a terrible idea because nobody believed anything green would clean. It was a tiny, tiny little segment. And try telling investors that you're going to take on the likes of Clorox and Unilever and P&G, what I like to call P in the motherfucking G, and they've got a 100-year head start on us. They own distribution, and you're going to do it in this tiny little segment. So we had to figure out, how do we get people to buy a green cleaner who would never think to buy one? So this was our first ad back in 2002, which we've matured a little since then, but not much. And our thought was, people pay a premium for what's scarce, and there's nothing more scarce than fun and cleaning. And could we position the whole brand in a way that would create emotional engagement, and you would buy it not because it was green, but you would buy it because it was a really great experience. So with that little idea, we went out into the world. And this was photos from our first day. Adam and I literally were creating the products at home, hand delivering. We didn't have a marketing budget, so I would just do in-store demos. Still not sure why I'm standing in the liquor aisle pitching a cleaning product, but I think I just figured out anybody buying wine was way more interesting to talk to than buying a cleaner. And so we did the classic entrepreneur thing. We did our pulled together a few dollars, got proof of concept in stores, and then we eventually worked up to raising our Series A. And in our Series A, we said, you know what, we're going to get a national customer, we'll get Target, they're about design, we're about design, they're going to love us. So the first meeting went okay. They didn't like the name, they didn't like the size, and finally the buyer says, he's like, guys, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a snowball's chance in hell. So we're Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance? And as an entrepreneur, you just keep going. And we had just started working with Karen Rashid, and we really believed that we could set our products apart with great industrial design. And we got a big audience with Target, with the marketing department, who invited the buyers, who were incredibly upset. Rule number one, never go over a buyer's head. And we presented our dog and pony show of our vision of where we want to take this category. And we had our first Karen product that we started passing around the room. Just when I realized we were pitching a sex toy as a dish soap. Luckily, Target loved it. And I remember the buyer squeezing it and goes, oh my God, even I would use this. And from there, they gave us a test, and we do about $100 million of business every year. Just at Target alone, it's been an amazing, amazing partner. And then more recently, I launched a new company called Ollie, and it was the same idea. I just started looking at that really confusing supplement aisle where anytime I would stand in it, somebody would literally look like they were stressing out to choose something that was healthy for them. And so the thesis became like, okay, dig here. How can we do it different? What's the cultural shift it missed? And we figured out how to start to apply simplicity and lifestyle and taking a really tired thing of like your vitamin and turning it into something you want to leave on your counter and something you can create an emotional experience with. And so that's kind of the formula that I work with. And when asked to talk about this idea of branding the future, there's so many ways we could talk about it, from consumer relationships to tech to social media, but I want to focus on just one part of it, which I believe that brands of the future will continue to always be built from the inside out. That we live in such a transparent world, in a place where there's such competition for talent, but such a push for authenticity, that arguably your most important marketing person in a company is not your CMO, it's your head of HR. And so what we do is when we go to build brands, everything starts with building that brand from the inside. And then I simply believe that if you build a great culture, the products are nothing more than a souvenir from that culture. And if you got a great culture and you've got great products, the marketing part gets really, really easy. So both at Method and at Ollie, we put a lot of work and effort into our culture, which has become, obviously, we started back in 2001. This was a really unique idea, the way we approached it. Now today, everybody's focused on culture, but I think so many companies have lost the spirit of why you do it. And you don't create a beautiful office with a ping pong table for status or just to attract talent. You do it because you set the roots of who you are and what you believe in. And part of that is always getting the right people, of course, on board. So one idea I recommend you highly steal from us is the homework assignment. So whenever we go to hire anybody from Ollie or a Method, at the end of a normal process, we'll always ask them to come back, if this is the person we think we want to hire, to do a homework assignment. And they've got 45 minutes with 7 to 10 people that they interviewed with, and it's kind of like a live audition. And what it does is it really allows you to see how they work, and it's a form of prototyping, but also a form of chemistry and how they're going to work with us. But everybody's always asked the last question the same, is how will you help keep Method weird? And a big part of that is we want you to show up as your personal self to work, not just your professional self. Like all companies, we have values. And 2 of my favorite values is keep Method weird, stolen from Austin. But weird people change the world, right? Weird people is about accepting diversity. It's about thinking different. And like any company trying to grow, you need to be resourceful. You need to create things without the resources that you would normally have available at a small company. And who's the ultimate icon of resourcefulness? It's the guy who could shoot down an F-16 with chewing gum and a paperclip, MacGyver. Sadly, as we're getting older, we're realizing a lot of people don't know who MacGyver is. So when we hire new employees, we have to give them like the DVD set to kind of bring them up to speed. And one of our big challenges of a culture a couple years ago is we were fortunate enough to get big enough to build our own plant. And when most companies build a plant, they don't really think about it as an expression of the brand or your values or your mission. You typically find some cornfields to rip up, put a plant. It's away from the jobs. It's where there's cheap land. And we wanted everything about this plant to be an expression of who we are. And selfishly, we do think about it as marketing and as a way that we bring our brand to life. So we chose the inner city of Chicago. We're the first company in 35 years to build a plant there. And we wanted to build a plant where the jobs were really needed. This opened 2 years ago. We call it the Soapbox. And everything about this plant, from what we make to how we make it, is a representation of our values, including even who we hire within the neighborhood. It's the most sustainable manufacturing facility ever created. It's got its own wind turbines, solar trees. We actually put our own beehives out in front of it, and anybody in the company can learn to be a beehive keeper. On top of it, we also built the world's largest rooftop greenhouse. And particularly in the inner city, which are considered food deserts, it's really hard to find fresh produce. So we partnered with Gotham Greens, who runs it, and they not only sell the produce, but they also give a portion of it away from the local community. And if you were to walk into our Soapbox, you would literally feel like you walked into the brand. And everything from the people you meet to how we've designed it is a real expression of who we are. And while not only this is great to leverage, through marketing, it also keeps us rooted in what we do every day. And if I had to bring our culture down to one thing, of the secret sauce, it's this idea of the artist and the operator. So everywhere through both companies, we have people, who I would consider more artist type. They're creators. We do all of our product development in-house, so it could be somebody who's doing packaging engineering to fragrance, and people who are operators, who are really good at helping run the company. And we want to be one of those few organizations in the world that can innovate and be creative and have an amazing imagination, but actually run a predictable business, which also creates more space to be creative. And if you look at really any successful company in its heyday, it had an artist and operator at work. So Apple had Tim Cook with Steve Jobs. Gap, when it was an amazing company, had Don Fisher with Mickey Drexler. And you can see that through a lot of organizations. And so this is something we try to keep, throughout the entire part of the organization. And then once you've built a great culture, I think products are nothing more than just a souvenir of the culture. And a product, of course, could be, in our case, a physical product. It could also be a service. It could be a software. And we want to be one of those few companies, like a Nike or an Apple, that is just so product-centric, and everything is about getting the product right. I very much think of this as our version of marketing, and we'll always put more money into creating a great product than anywhere else. And we live in such a visual world, of course, and digital is such a visual medium that it rewards aesthetics in a way that's never been awarded before. And then just one example I'll share of how we think about how the culture carries into products. We do a lot of volunteer days like other organizations. Being in California, a popular one always is coastal cleanup. And so our teams would be out there doing these coastal cleanups on occasion, and they would pull all this plastic off of the beach. And they took it onto themselves to figure out, what could we do with this? And we're a little bit of plastic geeks at Method. And so it sounds a lot easier than it looks, but they figured out how to turn it into an ocean bottle. And so we started partnering with community groups to pull off this plastic and ultimately recycle it into other products. And by no means is this a solution to the problem of ocean plastic, but we see it as our little way of bringing cause to it. And it's just a simple little way, an example, that our teams just had full permission to really express their values and their mission through our product. And then as a marketer, it's so much easier to start to tell stories, whether it's in social media or advertising, when you've got this great authentic culture, and from that culture are coming really, really unique products. And as a marketer, selfishly, it just makes my job a lot easier. And so I think of it at the end that, the one thought I'll leave you with is marketing is just a transfer of emotion. In building great brands, whether today or the future, it's about an emotional engagement. And human beings relate to objects in human ways. And so our job as marketers is to always find that way to connect emotionally, no matter how boring the product is. And once culture and products are right, the rest of it gets really easy.